Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Dion's Daily Dose. I'm not sure why it says live a minute and a half. Interesting. So I've got some weird stuff going on with this program that I use for this, but whatever. So I got a few things to talk to you guys about today. Some of them more interesting than others, but nonetheless. So we'll start with some state stuff. You guys will be, I'm sure, thrilled to learn that our local, let's see, there we go. All right. Our local state rep, Pat Boy, has actually managed to, well, almost accomplish something. Right here, it says, Boy's HB 1380 passes unanimously out of the House. Unanimous. Wow. So something act not only made it pass committee, but was passed unanimously in the House. Monday, State Rep Pat Boyd, the Michigan City House Bill 1380 passed unanimously out of the House of Representatives. The bill would exempt motor-driven cycles and lightweight electric vehicles from the annual electric vehicle supplement fee. Boy released the following statement on the passage of the bill through the House. Quote, "First, I want to thank my fellow co-authors and House colleagues for their support on this crucial piece of legislation. As the bill moves to the Senate, I am optimistic about the continued bipartisan support in creating an eco-friendlier Indiana." The bill now moves to the Senate. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen. That is absolutely where our concerns, my goodness, talking's hard today, where our concerns should be. Wouldn't you agree? With everything that's going on, absolutely reducing the fees for electric vehicle, lightweight cycles, etc., is the top of the priority list. All right, guys. There's some other stuff with that, but the short version, here's the part that I found interesting. All right. So our legislature claims that they need more money constantly, more of our tax dollars, and they don't have enough to keep the roads fixed. But the absolute concern is that they should be reducing the amount that certain classes of vehicles pay. Now, if it's for like mopeds and stuff, potentially. I'd have to look at the breakdown. But let's get into the fun stuff. All right. So first of all, hold on. Let me actually bring up this. I had it up and then I accidentally closed it when I was looking at something else, but that's okay. In the meantime, let's see here. So I have something interesting that I want to share with you guys. It's pretty funny. So first of all, I don't know if you guys have been watching, but this whole JFK releasing the documents and all of that, there was an extremely interesting press conference that was held that I only caught a quick clip of, but I want to show you what I saw that I found very, very interesting. Here we go.
I think will be very supportive. And we've also been told that the CIA director is very supportive. To put it in perspective, I think that this issue transcends not just one administration, but multiple administrations. And it hasn't been until now that we've been able to get people actually in positions of power that will push for transparency. Now, if I find that different entities in the various intelligence agencies are stonewalling us, I'm going to make that known to the American people. But as of right now, we are cautiously optimistic.
What's your priority list? Is Epstein 9/11?
Our first.
I don't know if you guys could hear. It says, "What's the priority list?" Epstein, 9/11. She responds with,
investigation will be announced, but it's going to be covering on a thorough investigation into the John F. Kennedy assassination. And I can tell you, based on what I've been seeing so far, the initial hearing that was actually held here in Congress was actually faulty in the single bullet theory. I believe that there were two shooters.
Interesting, right? Now, how much information has she seen? How much information is there for her to say, I believe there were 2 shooters? That is interesting. I will say this. She goes on to say, we're not looking to verify or justify any conspiracy theories. We're just looking for the truth. And I agree with that. The truth is absolutely critical in this. And it is absolutely crucial with restoring Americans' belief in their government. Because let's face it, guys, not doing so hot right now, right?
I mean, these things.
Here's an example from New York Post today. I think it was today. Elon Musk claims some recipients of Social Security checks are 150 years old.
Like, it's just common sense. It's not draconian or radical. I think it's really just saying, let's look at each of the expenditures and say, is this actually in the best interest of the people? And if it is, it's approved. If it's not, we should think about it. So
very straightforward.
There's crazy things like just cursory examination of Social Security, and we've got people in there that are 150 years old. Now, do you know anyone that's 150? I don't. Okay. They should be on the Guinness Book of World Records. They're missing out. So, that's a case where, like, I think they're probably dead. It's my guess. Or they should be very famous, one of the two. And then there are a whole bunch of Social Security payments where there's no identifying information. Well, why is there no identifying information? Obviously, we want to make sure that people who deserve to receive Social Security do receive it, and that they receive it quickly and accurately.
Now, we're being told constantly that there's not enough money in Social Security to keep going, right? There's not enough money. We need more money for Social Security. Oh, Social Security is going to be insolvent. Well, maybe if we weren't sending payments to people who are 150 years old and have no identifying information, then perhaps we wouldn't be out of money for Social Security. I don't know about you guys, but I am thrilled that Doge is getting to the bottom of this stuff. Here's another example. Once again, one of my favorite channels, Memeology 101. Elon Musk confirms Doge is investigating federal employees with high net worth despite low pay.
And also, could you mention some of the things that your team has found, some of the crazy numbers, including the woman that walked away with about 30 million,
right?
Etc.
Well, we do find it sort of rather odd that there are quite a few people in the bureaucracy who have ostensibly a salary of a few $100,000, but somehow manage to accrue tens of millions of dollars in net worth while they are in that position, which is, what happened to USAID. We're just curious as to where it came from. Maybe they're very good at investing, in which case we should take their.
Speaking of USAID, so that's what Doge is up to, guys. Look, they're looking into the money that's being spent and saying, is this for the good of the American people? If so, fine. If not, let's look into it. Now, we have a whole bunch of people losing their minds over this. How so? Well, unfortunately, a judge ordered the CDC, FDA, and HHS to restore web pages that were deleted to comply with a Trump executive order. Now, I went through a whole bunch of this, but I wanted to look at what was going on here, right? Here it is. Okay. So it says here, judge orders HHS, CDC, and FDA to restore the deleted web pages with health information. Now, I want you guys to pay close attention to what's said here. Washington. A federal judge on Tuesday ordered the Department of Health and Human Services, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and Food and Drug Administration to restore web pages and data that had been scrubbed in compliance with President Trump's executive order on gender ideology while litigation moves forward. Why? U.S. District Judge John Bates agreed to grant a temporary restraining order sought by the group Doctors for America, which argued that its members used the websites when treating patients and conducting research. The nonprofit organization said that the removal of the web pages by the Department of Health and Human Services and its components violated federal law. Now, we'll continue in just a moment, but my question is, how many doctors do you go to that pull up the FDA or Health and Human Services CDC in order to treat you? I'm just curious. I'd be a little concerned if my doctor needed any of these agencies in order to appropriately treat me. I mean, it seems weird to me, but Bates found that the challengers were likely to succeed in their claims that the Department Health and Human Services, CDC, and FDA acted unlawfully when they stripped medical information from public-facing websites. What exactly was removed and what is considered medical information? Quote, "It bears emphasizing who ultimately bears the harm of defendants' actions. Everyday Americans, and most acutely underprivileged Americans seeking health care," he wrote. Citing declarations from two doctors filed in the case, Bates said if they, quote, "cannot provide these individuals the care they need and deserve within the scheduled and often limited time frame, there is a chance that some individuals will not receive treatment, including for severe life-threatening conditions." What severe life-threatening conditions is a doctor going to attempt to find the solution for on the FDA or HHS website? Seriously? The public thus has a strong interest in avoiding these serious injuries to the public health, end quote. His order directs the agencies to restore earlier versions of their websites by 11:59 p.m. Tuesday. That is today. It comes after Bates held a hearing on the matter Monday. Signed on his first day in office, Mr. Trump instead of President Trump, Mr. Trump from CBS News, executive order on gender ideology stated that the U.S. recognizes two sexes, male and female, and it directed agencies to remove, quote, "all statements, policies, regulations, forms, communications, or other internal and external messages that promote or otherwise inculcate gender ideology." I mean, it seems pretty straightforward to me. Well, of course, days after the president issued his order, the Office of Personnel Management issued a memorandum ordering all agencies by 5 p.m. on January 31st to take down all websites, social media accounts, and other public-facing media, quote, "that inculcate or promote gender ideology." In response to the memo, the CDC and FDA took offline numerous web pages and data sets, including recommendations on how physicians should treat sexually transmitted infections. Oh, yeah, they're STIs now, guys. I know I'm a little late on that, but it's no longer called sexually transmitted diseases. Now they're sexually transmitted infections. I'm not entirely sure why the change, and adult immunization guidance. That's interesting. So, recommendations on how physicians should treat STIs and adult immunization guidance. So, both of those are life-threatening if they're not up there, huh? So, you're a doctor who went to medical school and, I mean, it's assumed that you know what you're talking about, but you need these websites in order to treat your patients. While the wording on some websites was adjusted to adhere to Mr. Trump's directive, allowing them to stay online, other information like data from the CDC's youth risk behavior surveillance system was removed completely. The agency said in a banner on its main website that it was, quote, being modified to comply with President Trump's executive orders. Doctors for America, there's a name for you. Doctors for America filed its lawsuit against the health agencies on February 4th, alleging they violated a federal law that governs the agency rulemaking process and another that requires federal agencies to ensure the public has, quote, timely and equitable access to their public information. The group argued in court papers that its members relied on the scrubbed information to provide treatment, conduct research, and inform public health responses on topics like youth risk behaviors, adolescent health, and HIV. Doctors for America said some of its members were already experiencing challenges as a result of losing access to information from the CDC. In one instance, it said a Chicago-based physician, big shock, who works at a clinic serving low-income immigrant families, could not consult the CDC's website for resources on how to address a chlamydia outbreak at a local high school and bolster STI testing and prevention efforts. So let me get this straight. So these doctors, right, they went to medical school and are supposed to have a pretty good idea at how health works, have no idea how to fight against a chlamydia outbreak at a high school. Well, I'm no doctor, but protection generally is a good idea, as well as education and abstinence. But I'm not a doctor, and I didn't rely on the CDC website, so I must be wrong. This is some of the stupidest. Another doctor who is also a researcher at the Yale School of Medicine, said in a declaration that she lost the ability to consult CDC resources about prescribing treatments. So hold on. She's a researcher, so she's not prescribing anything. Quote, these doctors' time and effort are valuable, scarce resources, and being forced to spend them elsewhere makes their jobs harder and their treatment less effective, Bates wrote. So going to a different web page introduces undue hardships, I guess. He said that the Department of Health and Human Services, CDC, and FDA face a minimal burden if required to store access to health resources, which have been available to the public for years. Now, I want to pause just very briefly because, look, if there is real critical information that the CDC, FDA, or another agency is not presenting that they should be, by all means, that should absolutely be put back online. But if we're talking about this same gender garbage, then, and I suspect we are, but we're almost done. Quote, there is nothing in either the OPM memorandum or the record, and indeed defendants proffered no information at the hearing to suggest the restoration of the removed web pages would pose a burden on the agency's ability to engage in their work, Bates wrote. Similarly, there is no information to suggest that restoring public access would even interfere with the agency's ongoing efforts to conform those resources with the president's executive orders. Last paragraph. The order from Bates comes as Mr. Trump has faced, again, Mr. Trump has faced numerous setbacks in the court stemming from lawsuits targeting his administration's actions. On Monday alone, 5 different judges took action that favored challenges to Mr. Trump's directives on birthright citizenship, a freeze on federal funding, cuts to how medical research grants are funded, and his deferred resignation program. So in other words, we have judges, a whole bunch of judges who, might I add, ladies and gentlemen, are not elected. The Democrats are crying about these judges, or excuse me, about Elon Musk But are district court judges appointed? Yes, they are. Supreme Court justices, Court of Appeals justices, and district court judges are nominated by the president and confirmed by the United States Senate. You know, the same way that other appointees are made, the same way that Elon Musk was given the powers that he was given, which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I discovered today. I had actually forgotten about this. Do you guys remember Huma? What's her name? Huma Abedin? Huma? I don't know how you say her name. Well, interestingly enough, her job title was very similar and the same law in effect as Elon Musk and Huma Abedin, the same. It's like a special envoy or something. They actually have the same, it's the same method, right? We didn't hear anyone, at least not Democrats, crying about the power that Huma Abedin wielded. I didn't hear any whining about that. So anyway, these judges are not elected. They're appointed. They never ran for office. The voters never elected them. So why then are the Democrats okay? Because they're against Trump, of course. Anything against Trump is a good thing. All right, so the next big deal, right, is the Democrats losing their mind over CFBP. Now, what is CFBP? What do they do? Well, I asked a few questions to Grok, and let's see what he had to say, because I did find it interesting. I said, what does the CFPB do? The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, because the Democrats are losing their minds that CFPB is being, quote, defunded, the same as USAID, and we'll get into it in a minute. But what the hell is it? It's a U.S. government agency established in 2011, so not that long ago, under the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act. Its primary functions include protecting consumers. The CFPB works to protect consumers from unfair, deceptive, or abusive practices in the financial products and services market. This includes oversight of various financial products like mortgages, credit cards, and student loans. Student loans. Haven't we heard a lot about that recently and how all this money's getting shuffled around under the guise of student loans? Maybe that's why the Democrats are so against people looking into this agency. Regulation and supervision. It regulates banks, credit unions, securities firms, payday lenders, mortgage servicing operations, foreclosure relief services, debt collectors, and other financial companies. The CFPB, I keep wanting to say it the other way, CFBP, but it's CFPB, has the authority to write rules implementing federal consumer financial laws. Enforcement. The Bureau can enforce consumer protection laws through investigations. They can bring lawsuits, or they can impose fines on companies that violate these laws. They also do education and outreach. The CFPB provides educational resources to help consumers understand financial products, make informed decisions, and know their rights. It runs initiatives like Know Before You Owe for clearer mortgage disclosures. Now, I'll be the first to say I am not against most of this stuff, right? I think consumer protection, and consumer education are critically important. You can thank stuff like this for those big notices. You know, those, I don't know if you guys get them in the mail, but I've gotten them in the mail from these predatory lenders. That's like a 1,300% APR on these loans. I've looked at this stuff, and because it says it on there, you can now see that. That's fairly recent. I remember when it was buried in minuscule tiny print how much the APR was. But now it's pretty easy. Same with credit cards, right? You get an offer for a credit card, you flip that paper over, 26%, 36%, whatever it is. I'm not against that, right? I'm not against transparency. But do you think that that kind of stuff requires almost $1 billion because, let's see here. Let me find it. Let's see here. Okay, so this is an article entitled, "We're About to Get Annihilated." This is from The Hill. Musk and Doge descend on Consumer Bureau. The Trump administration is moving rapidly to gut the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB, halting the agency's work, cutting off its funding, and shutting down its headquarters. The push is not unlike the effort launched in the early years of President Trump's first term to defang the agency, which has faced staunch opposition from Republicans throughout its brief existence. However, as Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, sweeps into one agency after another with the directive to slash wide swaths of government funding, the new assault on the CFPB has sparked concerns from consumer advocacy groups and Democratic lawmakers about just how far the administration will go this time. And pretty damn far. Pretty far. I do believe that we are seeing Trump the Revenge Tour, aka Trump Unleashed. I think we are getting what we thought we were getting the first time we elected Donald Trump. And yeah, I voted for Trump. You're damn right. And I would do it again. Three times. Not in 3 times general election, not including primaries. But let's say that when I voted for Trump the first time, I fully expected what we're seeing now. I have voiced my concerns with the Trump administration's first term, but I am very, very pleased with this term. And I think we're going to see some interesting stuff. But, quote, "I think everyone assumes this is the USAID playbook, and I think everyone's operating off of the assumption that we're about to get annihilated the way that they were annihilated," a CFPB employee told The Hill, referring to the U.S. Agency for International Development. The moves at the CFPB have drawn parallels with USAID, where staff were also told to stay out of headquarters and cease work before the Trump administration attempted to place thousands of employees on administrative leave. The effort was, of course, put on hold by a federal judge Friday night. Quote, "There is precedent for certain action, for certain ways in which they took CFPB off the beat during the first Trump administration," said Graham Steele, former Assistant Secretary of Financial Institutions at U.S. Treasury under former President Biden. Quote, "The idea of trying to basically shut the agency down in all but name is a step farther," he added. "It's an escalation." The Trump administration launched its blitz attack on the agency over the weekend, shortly after newly confirmed Office of Management and Budget, OMB, Director Russell Vought was appointed acting CFPB director on Friday. He took the place of Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who had been named acting director just days earlier. Bessent had reportedly directed staff to halt work on enforcement actions, rulemaking, and litigation. Vought similarly ordered employees to, quote, "cease all supervision and examination activity and stakeholder engagement Saturday," according to the Washington Post. That same day, he announced he would not take its next drawdown of funds from the Federal Reserve. What? Listen to this. Quote, "The Bureau's current balance of $711.6 million is in fact excessive in the current fiscal environment," Vought wrote in a post on X. "This spigot, long contributing to CFPB's unaccountability, is now being turned off." Yes! Thank you. Why do you need $1 billion to educate consumers on predatory loans and to do investigations, to file lawsuits? You don't need $1 billion frickin' to do that. There's more information. This, by the way, is classic. If you want to laugh, this is from Slate, okay, which tells you all you need to know. I work at the latest agency being targeted by Musk. We just received this shocking email. I'm a lawyer at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. My colleagues and I work tirelessly to protect the American public from predatory, unfair, and illegal practices by bad actors in the market for consumer financial products like credit cards, mortgages, and student loans. We are a relatively small group of government employees who enforce federal financial laws, including by bringing cases against those who violate them. Since the CFPB's creation in the wake of the Great Recession, we've returned over $21 billion to the pockets of hardworking Americans, money that was taken from them by businesses flouting the law. We've also proposed rules that keep our economy fair for everybody, like eliminating pointless junk fees. My colleagues and I are dedicated civil servants. I'm sure you are. Working people who have pledged to work on behalf of other working people. And we love what we do. But all of our activities have come to an abrupt halt in the past few days. Last Thursday, the Senate confirmed Russell Vought, an avowed Christian nationalist and architect of Project 2025, to be head of the office of, you get it, guys. It's definitely worth a laugh. Anyway, it's a whole lot of crying about Trump and Musk and Doge and basically turning off the spigot. Because let's face it, that's what it's about. And ultimately, that's all they care about is the money. I also asked Grok the FDIC role in consumer protection. So I started reading. I'm like, that's interesting because it sounds a lot like this. I said, how is the CFPB different from the FDIC? It says the CFPB and the federal and the FDIC are both U.S. government agencies focused on aspects of financial regulation and consumer protection. But they have distinct roles, functions, and areas of oversight. Primary focus of CFPB, consumer protection in the financial sector. The CFPB aims to protect consumers from unfair, deceptive, or abusive practices in financial products and services. Okay. Scope covers a broad range of financial products, including mortgages, credit cards, student loans, payday loans, and more. It regulates non-bank financial companies like payday lenders, debt collectors, etc. The FDIC, on the other hand, primary focus, deposit insurance and bank stability. The FDIC primarily ensures the safety of depositors' money by ensuring deposits and promoting public confidence in the U.S. financial system. Scope focuses on banks and thrift institutions, ensuring they operate safely and soundly. Its regulatory oversight is more bank-centric compared to the CFPB's broader financial product oversight. In other words, the CFPB could easily be folded into the FDIC, and we would probably spend a whole lot less money. Just saying. Let's see here. I mean, I looked into, so let me show you this real quick, just so you guys know. According to AI, the CFPB's budget for fiscal year 2025 is $823 million. That's where I keep getting the $1 billion price tag from. And let's see here. So as far as this Hill article, the agency's chief operating officer, Adam Martinez, reportedly told staff Sunday that its headquarters would be closed for the week. On Monday, Vought ordered employees to, quote, stand down from performing any work task, according to Business Insider. The CFPB's X account has since been deleted, and the homepage of its website shows a note that says 404 page not found, although the site remains functional. Employees affiliated with Musk's Doge have also gained access to CFPB's data systems, according to Bloomberg News. Despite initially receiving limited access, they now have access to the full scope of information stored at the agency, including sensitive bank examination and enforcement records. That's what we want. I want them to have unrestricted access, because how are they supposed to look through stuff if they don't have access? That is my question. All right, so let's see here. There is, okay, so moving on back to the state, because I think it's interesting. Do you guys remember when Braun was running? One of the big things that he kept talking about was property taxes, right? This was July 26th of 2024. Indiana Capitol Chronicle said Republican gubernatorial nominee Braun releases property tax proposal. And it was, it was sweeping, right? But it would have definitely meant paying less property taxes. Well, that was at least until the Indiana Senate got involved. So what happened there? Senate property tax relief drops main portions of Governor Braun's plan. Senators would tighten school referendums and introduce a credit for first-time homebuyers. That's their solution. Senate Republicans on Tuesday backed away from the most significant parts of Governor Mike Braun's property tax cut proposal. Instead, their version of relief includes tightening requirements for schools to advance certain referendums, limiting how much property tax levies can grow, and introducing a credit for first-time home buyers. Now, this is an interesting way to phrase this. The cost to units of government would be just shy of $300 million in the first year, according to the author. Now, there are two ways you can phrase that. You can either say the savings to taxpayers, $300 million, or you can say they're taking money from the government and it costs us $300 million in the first year. Imagine that. Of course, the Capitol Chronicle is going to phrase it like that. 3 Democrats voted against the measure, citing the lack of relief for renters and the uncertain impacts on schools. It moved out of the committee on a 10-3 vote. An amendment struck large portions of Governor Mike Braun's property tax relief proposal, including the annual 3% cap on the growth of property tax bills. Senior citizens, families with children, and low-income Hoosiers had growth capped at 2% under Braun's plan. Amazingly enough, the Senate axed that. I wonder why. It also removed increased deductions for homeowners. Overall, Braun's plan would have resulted in an immediate 21% reduction in the average homeowner tax bill. Under the new Senate proposal, however, taxpayers would see $1.4 billion in savings over the next 3 years. Braun's plan would have saved $1.1 billion in its first year and $1.6 billion in its third year. Senator Travis Holdman, who authored SB 1, introduced the amended version in committee on Tuesday. Pulling back on Braun's plan lessened the hit on local units of government, which rely on property taxes to pay for services like law enforcement, parks, libraries, and fire safety. Just out of curiosity, guys, are you tired of these politicians and these newspapers telling you how much the government needs your money? I am. I'm tired of hearing, oh, they need these property taxes to pay for this, to pay for that. At the same time, they are consistently raising things like the wheel tax and gas tax and these other taxes consistently, while reminding us we need to be good little quiet minions and keep paying more and more and more. We have worked consistently with the governor's office to get this to a good spot, Holdman said. We just think there's a fine line that we have to walk to make sure that we are careful to be responsible to local government and at the same time provide some tax relief. Walk a fine line. I think that's a good term for it. Walk a fine line between effective and POS. Yeah, I think that's it makes sense to me. These guys kill me, dude. In a statement, Braun's office said the plan, quote, took steps in the right direction, but said he would continue to work with legislators on the administrative priority. Quote, the governor will carefully review the changes to his plan and looks forward to working with the House and Senate to strengthen the amended bill to include broad-based and immediate property tax cuts for Hoosier homeowners who have been hit the hardest by skyrocketing home value inflation. Now, here's an interesting part. The wide-ranging amendment, of course it is, because they never do anything small, introduced to the bill restricts school referendums to general election ballots in even-numbered years. Schools also can't introduce such questions in back-to-back years, though there are exceptions for funding teacher salaries or school safety measures. We'll get to that in a minute. Believe that. Much of the language mirrors Senate Bill 8, authored by Senator Brian Buchanan, R. Lebanon. Buchanan said that referendums would need to include the total amount of money that would be raised by levying a property tax. I think that's a good idea. How much is the max? How much do we need? After this is met, we will stop taxing you. Yeah, right. There are some revisions to the ballot question in trying to make that very practical and straightforward for the voters, Buchanan said. Republican senators also opted to incorporate provisions from SB 9 into their property tax relief proposal, which freezes the maximum levy growth quotient for 2026 and then caps it for the following 2 years. Well, what does that mean? The maximum levy growth quotient currently limits how much local property tax levies can rise in a year based on a 6-year rolling average of non-farm personal income growth. Because of inflation, it rose to 5% in 2023 compared to 3.4% in 2019. Lawmakers last year put in an artificial cap of 4% when without the cap, the maximum would have been 5.5%, according to the Indiana Office of Management and Budget. The amended bill would freeze it for 2026, and then it could increase 1% in 2027 and 2% in 2028. Previously, local units of government could petition to exceed that cap, but they will no longer have that option. Instead, they can place it before voters in a ballot question. I like that. Senator Linda Rogers, R. Granger, described a new method for counties to provide individual property tax relief through a payment deferral program, which she authored under SB 6. That process is coupled with deductions for disabled veterans and seniors. Quote, this is an opportunity for them to be able to help a homeowner that may be going through some very difficult times, or maybe a senior that's on a fixed income. Homeowners will have the option to defer $500 of their property income tax annually until their home is sold. However, it's unclear how many counties will opt to create such a program. Yeah, I think it's pretty low chance here in LaPorte County, but who knows? Finally, the bill introduces a first-time homebuyer tax credit, a first for Indiana. The credit assists those with incomes up to $75,000 buying a property that costs up to $250,000. Qualified individuals can get a $2,500 credit for 5 years after purchase. So hold on. Just remember, guys, it costs up to $250K. So none of us would qualify for these new homes they're building in LaPorte because those start at $300. The Indiana Capital Chronicle reached out to a handful of local organizations to get an initial reaction to the amended bill. Of course, you know who they reached out to. Denny Kosterison, speaking on behalf of the Indiana Association of School Board Officials, noted that the new version, quote, lessened the negative impact on school corporations and other local government units, but flagged concerns for educators. The new cap on levy growth will, quote, significantly end quote, reduce property taxes collected over the next 3 years, which impacts budgets for local schools. Here's an idea. Quit spending so much friggin' money on all these administrative positions. Quit pushing all this. Anyway, additionally, schools will be prohibited from issuing new general obligation bonds for 2 years after a current bond expires, he said. Many school corporations use this procedure on an annual basis to supplement their operating fund, Kosterson noted. Regarding school referendums, we appreciate the revised language, making it more understandable for voters, Kosterson said, and that school operating and safety referendums will not be subject to the newly created 1-year cooling off period before another referendum could be proposed. Of course not. They want to tax the ever-loving crap out of you guys. Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter. It's a uniparty here in Indiana, and it's the same crap as across the nation. It doesn't matter which party is so-called in charge. It just matters how much money you give them. That's really what it comes down to, because allegedly here in Indiana, we're supposed to be a Republican supermajority. Well, if that's the case, why do our taxes keep going up and up and up and up? I wonder, right? Okay, so I got one last thing I want to show you guys to kind of finish it up, because I think this is the perfect ending. Before I play this, though, I'm going to tell you, I do have some stuff that I'm working on for the channel that I think you guys are going to like. I got to find this. Where is it? There it is. Okay. Because
have you seen this meme?
I want to diversify a little bit, right? I want to make it a little different and a little more entertaining, but also more informative. And for that, like I said, I'm working behind the scenes on some stuff that I think you guys will dig. But let's wrap it up with this. You guys saw JD Vance talking to the reporter, but this is glorious.
Have you seen this meme? It's all over the place, and it might be the best one to come out since Let's Go Brandon. If you're not familiar, allow me to teach you about it. JD Vance had an interview with the always combative to the right, Margaret Brennan.
This is a country founded by immigrants.
Well, this is a country
This is a
founded
unique
by.
country.
This is it.
I know it's hard to believe someone this obnoxious can be real, but JD Vance is the best in the business at this, and they make him look great every time they do this.
Just because we were founded by immigrants doesn't mean that 240 years later that we have to have the dumbest immigration policy in the world.
Now bear with me
Love
and
it.
watch this clip because
Love
it's integral to the meme.
Now that
So
we
no.
know that we have vetting problems with a lot of these refugee programs, we absolutely cannot unleash thousands of unvetted people into our country.
These
It's
people are
not
vetted.
good.
These people are vetted.
Just like the guy who planned a terrorist attack in Oklahoma a few months ago, he was allegedly properly vetted. And many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted.
Yep.
Clearly he
Yeah.
wasn't. I
Yeah.
don't want my children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted. And because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either.
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really
But
care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country. And I think most Americans agree with me.
It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
What she's saying is entirely irrelevant to the bigger point and only serves as a gotcha exercise in pseudo-intellectualism that JD slaps away immediately.
I don't really
But-
care, Margaret.
And so the phrase, I don't really care, Margaret, was born into this meme that can be used in so many situations that the left tries to force upon the public. Upset about Elon Musk?
I don't really
But-
care, Margaret.
Still hyperventilating over his salute?
I don't really
But-
care, Margaret.
Wanting to impeach Trump 2 weeks into his presidency?
I don't really
But-
care, Margaret.
Do you not like deportations because they're mean?
I don't really
But-
care, Margaret.
Have concerns about not letting men play in women's sports?
I don't really
But-
care, Margaret.
Are you mad at RFK's stance on vaccines?
I don't really
But-
care, Margaret.
Does Kash Patel scare you?
I don't really
But-
care, Margaret.
Worried about the Department of Education?
I don't really
But-
care, Margaret.
The FBI?
I don't really
But-
care, Margaret.
DEI?
I don't really
But-
care, Margaret.
So when your liberal friend starts complaining about whatever issue the TV is telling them to get upset about, your response is,
I don't really
But-
care, Margaret.
The Daily Wire occasionally has some entertaining stuff. And this is one of them, in my opinion. All right, guys. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you again real soon. God bless you. God bless Indiana, and God bless the United States of America. Good night.
If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose. This has been Dion's Daily Dose, hosted by Dion Bergeron. Executive producers, Sean Holgram and Michael Beebe. Copyright 2024. Dion's Daily Dose, all rights reserved.